Thank you for joining us on ABC24. I am anchor Pepper Baker. We are talking about the Memphis-Shelby County Schools state intervention legislation. It is headed to Governor Bill Lee's desk, and we are getting both sides, all sides of this issue. Here with me at the table today are MSCS board members as well as a former educator. That's District 4 board member Tamarcus Porter, District 5 board member Sable Otay, and former principal and current grandparent Marty Pettigrew. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so a lot to tackle here. So I just want to start, Commissioner Porter, let's start with you. The legislation. So we're about a week out from it actually getting passed and now waiting Governor Bill Lee's signature. But do you all, the legislation says intervention, but do you all feel like this is a takeover, or are we moving more into this could be an actual intervention?
So I think the last time I was here, we was ranked 44th in the nation for per pupil funding. Now we're 51st, so it's actually gotten worse. And so we definitely want to highlight that. But like I always say, intervention without the proper investments is just interference. And so, yes, we want to blame the state for not properly investing into our community. We want to blame the state for not properly investing into our school system. So yes, more so, it does feel like a takeover. Anytime you take away the community voices, then that in return is a takeover.
Okay, interference. I didn't even think about that word.
It's interference with the progress we're already making.
And you said per pupil funding has gotten worse.
It's gotten worse.
Do you have like the numbers on that?
So I think we went from 14,000 per pupil funding to 11,000.
Wow.
And so we're ranked 50 or 51st in the country.
Okay.
And that is per TEA.
Per TEA.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And giving some kind of just understanding, what does exactly that mean per pupil funding? Like, and how does that affect the child when obviously when there's less money, there's less to work with. But what does per pupil situations mean?
So I can answer that question. So per student, there's funding that every school district gets for every student. And right now we're about 5,000 less than the average student would receive. So let's just say we're receiving about 12,000. Maybe the average student will receive about 18,000. Now, what does that look like in the classroom? How does that affect the classroom? It affects teacher funding. It affects updated resources like textbooks and academic tools that we can use for intervention. It affects facilities. Everybody knows that if you're in an environment where it's clean, it's newer, we have updated facilities, then you are more apt to learn. Right? So all of those play a role. So I hear a lot of people say, I hear a lot of people say, let's not discuss the money, but we need to discuss the money because ever since the early 1990s, we have been chronically underfunded. That's 30 plus years. And let's not talk about the merger with the loss of the charter, right? Or surrendering the charter, right? So that was even more of a deficit that we got into because now we added even more schools with no additional funding. So we're looking at, having a larger school district and not having additional funding, and not to mention 85% of our students are classified as economically disadvantaged. So we have less funding. We have a redirection of funding now, which are going towards vouchers, right? And I don't have an issue with vouchers, but as long as it's not coming from the public education bucket of funds, which you don't want to take from someone or something that already at a deficit to put it elsewhere. And only 1 to 2% of students in the entire state of Tennessee is actually using those funds. And about 72% of students that are using those funds for vouchers are already in private schools or already homeschooled.
That's some good context there.
Yeah.
You've been in the classroom, obviously. You were a former principal. So when we talk about, and I want to we're going to touch back on this and get back to the legislation, but I think you have an important perspective because when you see it in the classroom, when there is less money per student, how does that work out? Or what does that look like?
Well, of course, that funding looks very differently in various ways, but we always say as administrators that funding follows the child. Funding follows the student. So when I was a principal, my budget was based on the number of students enrolled in my school. So that determined my schedule, that determined the services that I was able to offer to students, that determined how many teachers I was able to have, that determined classroom size. So determines a lot.
Yeah, that paints the picture a little bit better there too. So let's get back to this legislation. Criteria points seem to be something that stuck out to me because between the House bill and the Senate bill, that was large part of what it came down to. 4 out of 6, and then MSCS was the quota to have a required state intervention. Some districts, 6 or so, met 3 out of 6, but MSCS seems to be the only one that met 6 out of 6. Did that feel like a target?
Well, the reason it felt that, yes, it feels like a target because it was created. The bullet points were created for MSCS. So of course it fit. It was made to fit by our lawmakers.
Do you all feel that other school districts will eventually, be in the same boat as MSCS? Or, I mean, from the school board members, I want to hear if you all really felt like this absolutely excluded MSCS.
Yeah, so I do feel that way. Now, I don't want to see any district within the state of Tennessee to meet that criteria. But like Principal Marty just said, it does feel targeted. And I understand the state is saying, well, we have to do something about this because of the chronic absenteeism with the different schools are failing. But this is just not the way to go. So again, once you carve out criteria to meet those the standards of what we're not hitting, so to say, yeah, it just definitely feels targeted.
Okay. Now, there is a large part that was touted, this number, 75% of students are not reading on grade level. Is there accountability here that the district is not where it needs to be, and where to go from there? You just mentioned that this may not be the right way to go, but we can't, beat around the bush that the district is not where it needs to be.
Right.
I do think sometimes the 75% of children can't read is misleading because they're talking about not necessarily growth but proficiency. When we see people on Facebook and social media or just different news outlets saying, well, they can't read, I can guarantee I can give Senator Taylor and Representative Mark White a article on Bart Spinoza, and I guarantee they will have problems reading it. So are we going to say they can't read? No, our students can read. We've always said that if you give them the proper tools and resources, we can teach them how to read. It only takes 6 weeks for a child to learn how to read. And so we have the proper tools and people in place to do this. What happens is we have people in place that gets in the way of the progress.
I do want to make a comment on that as well, not to negate the fact that our students do need support, right? And so I don't know if many people know this, but there's a national reading or literacy issue. More than 50% of your average adult does not read above the 6th grade level. These are things that we're not talking about. So this is not things that's just happening in Tennessee or Memphis, but it's happening nationally. Not to say there's an excuse, because we want to take full responsibility and do our part as a board, as educators, as principals. And I do think our teachers and our principals and support staff are doing their very best to educate our students. But it's going to take a community effort. The parents, we have to read at home to our children. I remember growing up, we used to watch Schoolhouse Rock and Author. Now our kids are playing and watching Roblox. My kid plays Roblox too. So, we have to continue to do educational things with our students outside of the classroom. I went to register my son for pre-K, and one of the things that they were saying was a lot of the students that come into pre-K are already very far behind. So let's get those kids into pre-K at 3-year-old and 4-year-old, as soon as we can, so that we can start educating our students. And let's make this more of a community effort versus just efforts that's only supported by our teachers, because they already have so much on their plates. So not to say we're dodging accountability, because we want that. We want to make sure we're doing what's best for our students, but it's going to take a whole collaborative community and state effort to make sure that gets done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do have a lot to say, and as I think about that question, my mind is almost like an egg being thrown at a wall. I know a lot about data. I know a lot about data from large urban districts and the districts that are part of the Council of Great City Schools. And I know out of all of those schools that the achievement and the growth for Memphis Shelby County is much higher than any of those urban districts. I also know that from experience, I worked for the State Department of Education supporting the first 64 schools by myself from the state level that were named in the first list that we had. I served all 64 of those schools. I was in all 64 of those schools.
Wow.
I know what goes on in those schools. Do we have some issues? Yes, we have an issue. We have an issue with teacher effectiveness. It's not that we don't have effective teachers, because we have very effective teachers, but right now there is a teacher shortage, and we have teachers teaching on permits. We have middle school children who can't read. It doesn't mean they can't learn to read, but there's methods and materials that can help them learn to read. And my big issue with this interference or this takeover or this intervention is that I've heard for weeks, months, almost a year that our legislators and senators already know who those people are. They already have that committee ready. Tell me who they are. Let me know what X knows about curriculum. Let me know what the curriculum person on this committee knows that Dr. Amy Maples, who is the executive director of CNI, or Emily Vuso, who is over the intervention for the district. Let me know what these people know that district leaders that we have now don't know.
And that's a great point, and I'm happy you made that comment, because that segues into really my next question, was focused on the appointment board. Were you all, or are you all, able to give input, or are they asking for your recommendations at all on who is picked?
No.
No.
They are not.
No.
Okay. We know Governor Bill Lee and the two speakers of the House and the Senate are going to be responsible for the 9-member appointment board. Do you all believe that there should have been town halls? You know, we see that we've seen town halls with XAI, we've seen town halls with certain issues or crime even around town. Should there have been a town hall on the public's input on this appointment board?
Board Member Otte mentioned the giving up the charter. So yes, there was a board that gave up the charter, but before they voted to give up the charter, there were community meetings, and there was a community voice. And no, I am not aware of any community meetings or any voice that the community has had.
And that's essentially, and I agree, there has been no public input, there has been no community forums. We have not been asked, well, who you guys would like to see on the advisory committee. Now, I would say Senator Taylor's bill, I kind of will go along with that bill because it was advisory, and you don't take away the voices of the community. So that bill, if it was advisory, and you know, we all fairly new board members, we all need guidance in some kind of way. And the district has people that have been working in the district for a long time that's been moving this work forward. So that's more of a collaborative. But again, what I keep saying, when you pass this type of legislation that went with the House version, you take away the voices of the community. It's not about our positions. It's about being the voice of the community being heard. So, because I want to talk about accountability. So now, when you appoint these 9 board members, so the board of managers, once you appoint them, well, who they're going to be accountable to? Because the state put them there, so they'll be accountable to the state. So now, if this experiment fails, like it did in Detroit, like it did in New Orleans, and actually we want to tout what happened in Houston, and I went to college in Houston, and so shout out to all those Houstonians there, but it failed in Houston as well. And so we just can't create legislation to say, oh, we're just going to copy Houston. And so people like to use the definition of insanity. So you're essentially just going out creating, duplicating what these other states have done. It's been a failed experiment. So now, if this particular intervention or takeover fails, then who should we blame?
So and then that Board Member Porter reminds me of another comment about the achievement piece and the accountability piece, in that I have a 3rd grade grandson. I have a 3rd grade grandson who has a gifted IQ. I have a 3rd grade grandson who has had the supports that creates a good reader and a good mathematician at home. But my 3rd grade grandson just took the TCAP test. he and his friends, he has friends who were sick the weekend before TCAP because so much pressure from the state is put on making a 65 or higher on the third grade achievement test in reading, or you have to go to summer school, no family vacation, or you have to go to tutoring every day all year. One of those two things, or you have to repeat the grade. And yes, I do think the expectations from the state is too high for the achievement testing and testing the standards. You look at Houston, and the truth about what's going on in Houston is not out on the street in Memphis. But Houston lowered the test. They gave a different test and they had a different result. Not only have we not lowered the test, not only have we chosen not to change the test, but we have chosen to let private schools or schools with vouchers take the test of their choice.
Right.
We don't have a choice.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out because, private schools do not take the TCAP.
Right.
So I don't just think about that. And then to piggyback off what they were saying about Houston, Houston had statewide legislation in place prior to their takeover. So it wasn't legislation that was made in the moment and then enforced and said, hey, this, you hit this mark, we're taking it. No, they gave them the opportunity to have a turnaround model in place if possible. And they met the 5-year period where the schools were not achieving. And then that's when it took place. They didn't just in the middle of everything make legislation and say, this is going to be applicable to you. And then two, the ASD, we know that in 2012, they took over the lower 5% of the schools and said that we're going to make them achieve up to the 25% top tier level. That did not happen. So about 20 to 30 schools have returned back to Memphis Shelby County schools. And if you heard the press conference, one of our teachers said some of those students returned more than 6 years behind once we received those students back from the Achievement School District. So I always say, if we're talking about working collaboratively, if we're talking about doing some work with the state, if we have schools that are still performing, hey, let's try that again. Let's try the ASD again. Let's take the lower schools again. Let's pour those resources into those schools and let's try that again, instead of taking over the entire school district.
And the testing model that Tennessee has, what the statistician or the math person who Sanders, who created TCAP and the model that we have with growth and academic achievement, it was created that way for a reason. And Memphis Shelby County Schools for the last 3 years under the leadership of Dr. Angela Whitelaw has been a level 5 district for growth. Our children can always grow.
Yeah.
Can our children achieve like other students in the state? I do not believe so. Not until I believe they could, if we would come in and start in the home, providing the resources that a home needs to help children, and that's from training to materials to supplies to all of that. But I would like to see this 9-member intervention team, this 9-member accountability team, whatever they are going to choose to name them, I would like for them to be trained on understanding poverty. Until you understand the effect of poverty on a child's education, and children coming to school who have heard gunshots all night and have been under the covers. We have those children, and the schools and the principals I know who are leading those children, they're helping those children grow, but they're not getting to the 65th percentile in reading.
Okay, lots of strong points there. And we have to keep going, otherwise we're not going to have enough time. This last kind of bit about the board. So they'll oversee budgets, contract decisions over $50,000, staffing that's non-elected officials, non-elected employees, academic changes as needed. I know you all recently passed teacher raises. So is that something that could be overturned by the appointment board, or will you make that decision now and it stands?
I certainly would hope that that would not be overturned. We would have a lot of angry teachers.
Right.
For the first time in history, teachers in Memphis, Shelby County can make six figures as an educator, and we tend to do our best to increase that as much as possible. But that would come from additional state funding. At least us getting the average or the median of what other districts are actually getting. Yeah. So we'd hope that would not happen, because that would not be good, because our teachers would not be happy about that.
Right, that would be like one example, of course, and I hope that they wouldn't take that.
Speaking of contracts and this board, to board member Porter and Ote's points at various times, what will be the accountability of this board? You know, school restarts again at July 28th.
Yeah.
There are programs in place that are helping children that have the research and the data to back that they are helping. Is this board going to come in and stop those programs?
So that is a good question too. So contracts, and we know that the MSCS
Those are
district,
contracts.
right? MSCS district is almost like an ecosystem for also local businesses here. There's a lot of Memphis businesses and Shelby County businesses who partner with you guys. Is that something they should be worried about?
Well, I think they should be worried about it. Memphis Shelby County Schools is the second largest employer in Memphis. And so once we talk about a board of managers coming in with a particular, I don't want to say agenda, but a particular goal in mind, you can cut jobs, and now we're talking about the economic impact they can have on the community. You see the same type of trends that's happening from Memphis to Nashville to the airport, and so it's control has been this theme of this whole thing, and so sometimes that control can look like evilness as well, and so we don't want to call it the other thing, but sometimes you got to kind of call it what it is. So that's why we think I would love to see a more collaborative effort from the school board to the board of managers, but we do have to look at the economic disadvantages and the impact that will have on the community. So yes, contracts will be involved in it.
So basically, anybody that has a current contract with MSCS over $50,000 should be worried.
And how does that look for
does
that look for a classroom starting in July?
And we know that board is supposed to be finalized by July 1st, or they'll have.
Well, the governor wants them to meet now.
Right.
I want to know who they are.
Yes, I think a lot of people do. So let's, the first part of this, I really wanted to dive into the legislation. I think we got a good grip on how you all feel about how this was all handled. I want to debunk some things here that we've heard. So when we talk about how did we get here, you mentioned, the definition of insanity, right? 2 days ago, just as a disclaimer, I did interview Representative Mark White and Senator Brent Taylor, and they've, had language around the fact that the same status quo has been happening within the local authority of MSCS, which is what is now lent itself to a state intervention. But your point is looking at other districts that have had this similar model and it not working out there and trying to bring it here. So how did we get here? Do you all feel like you are shouldering the consequences or the burden from past leadership that now is your responsibility and you're just dealing with all of the ramifications of it?
So I agree. I blame everybody, every superintendent, every past board member, every person that had part in help shaping the lives of our children that not failed, but everybody had a part in shaping the lives of our children. I blame everybody because the work is never done. And so we've been elected for those seats. And again, it's a lot of jobs have been created, a lot of decisions happen within those seats. So for me as a board member, I take those things personally. And so although people come into this thing with good intentions from the state to the school board, again, the work is never done. So it's a lot of frustration that's been happening since I was been in high school. Just education in Tennessee in general, it has been frustrating. And there is a difference between growth and proficiency. And that's what Representative Mark White was talking about on your news segment. And so, we have to do more proficiency. But again, if we don't address those economic challenges that our children face, our job is just to help to educate them. And we're not even in the classroom. It's just our job to make the educational environment better. But it's not our job to wake your child up to get them to school.
Right.
It's our job once they come to school, they're in a safe, healthy learning environment. And so, it has been a long train of abuses from the time education first started, and then from the time the Tennessee Charter started to the time the Constitution, what it actually says in the Tennessee Constitution. So on the flip side of that is, maybe the educational system is doing exactly what it was designed to do in Tennessee, and that was just to train people to be workers versus thinkers.
And I do want to say, wow, when we talk about what's going on now, and again, we're new, so we did inherit a lot of issues. Now, not negating or disregarding accountability, because I want to take accountability for what we need to fix. But I also want to give a different perspective as it pertains to solutions. So what have we been doing? Because I feel like, just talking to some of my parents and my teachers, and even my parents said, we want an instant change. And I said, I would love to give you an instant change, but this has happened over several years, and it may take several years to fix it.
Fair.
So what we have done in this past year is we have a comprehensive facilities plans. So you can go online on blueprintforgreatness.org, and you can see what we are doing with our facilities. We do the hard things. If we have to close schools, we don't want to, but if we have a school that could hold 1,200 students and it has only 36 students or 80 students, it costs more money to keep that building open, so we would probably have to close it so that we could divert those resources to another school. So we have a comprehensive facilities plan now, and everything is online and it's transparent. We have an academic plan. We've had an academic plan for several years as well, and now we have a new academic plan with projections to 2030. So we have that. So let's talk about what we are doing, okay? Let's talk about, we have a scorecard. We have an academic scorecard. We have the 5. So we have things that we are putting in place, and we're trying to make those changes as we are seeing that those changes need to be made. And one other thing I wanted to say is, if we're talking about being solution oriented, we have an audit that just happened, right? And they said that our systems are antiquated. Well, if we've been having audits for 20 plus years, why has no one documented an antiquated system? You do not need a forensic audit to say on paper that your system is antiquated. So why is that you're saying that this year, and you could have said it last year? So let's really get down to the bottom of what's going on, and let's really be more solution oriented. I know we all want to point the fingers. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to provide resources and solutions and try to have better outcomes for our students, and that's what our goal is, and that's what we should be doing collaboratively as adults, and being better leaders for our students, because the students watch the legislators and these adults on TV fight each other.
Right.
That's not what we want to promote.
Okay.
We want to promote unity and growth and better outcomes for our students.
That's a passionate answer.
And that's the reason why we ran, because to try to address all the illnesses that's been happening.
Yes, I mean, you all are speaking valid points here, and I can see it in your eyes in the way that you're coming across that. There's a little bit of frustration because of the work that you are doing. Did you all feel like you guys are the school board that could have turned things around, even though there's been decades of wrongdoing? But are you all feeling like you're just not getting your time and your due just of being able to do that?
Yes, our first 2 years on the board has been dealing with politics versus dealing with the progress of how we can better our students and our teachers' lives. So that's our first 2 years have been caught up in there, but it's part of the role as well. And so unfortunately that the way we got here is unfortunate. But again, that's part of the reason why I ran. I'm pretty sure Board Member O'Tay ran again to address a lot of the illnesses that's been happening, that's been plaguing our community and our system for a while. And it's going to take more community effort as well.
Right. We have a lot to get to. We don't have a lot of time left, so I'm just going to keep moving along here. You mentioned that you've been dealing with a lot of politics on the front end. Have to bring up this question. So in the interview with Representative White and Senator Brent Taylor, I asked them, because there's been word that the ousting of the former superintendent, which was a decision you all were a part of, I asked them if that was the catalyst of why this intervention happened. And he said that there was a lot of issues beforehand, but that decision accelerated it. And even went on to say that state leaders had advised the board and had met with you all to not fire her. Is that true? Were you all advised not to fire Dr. Fagans?
Were we personally advised not to?
Were you told by state leaders, city leaders?
I was not personally advised by those state legislators to not fire her.
Okay. So maybe not all board members. Right. They meet with all the board members.
Right. So some of the colleagues may have been, but I would say, if you have county commission or city council make a decision that no one likes, then that's not a reason to
go to this extent.
take local accountability and local leadership and have a state completely take control and pretty much just say we're going to disregard the voters, because this is just a little snippet of what could happen, but I think people are not seeing the larger picture. So now you're removing what people fought so very hard for, which was to actually have the right to vote. So now what they're saying is, hey, county commission, you made a vote to legalize something, or you made this vote and we don't like it. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick some people ourselves and we're going to say, hey, you guys, we have something that we think in mind that could be the right thing. And instead of listening to what the voters have said and the way they voted, and instead of waiting till the next election cycle, we're just going to take matters in our hands and we're going to do how we see fit. And that's not right, because people really have to see the bigger picture. And we don't want to nullify anyone's votes. This is our voice. We're urging people to go out and vote. But for what? If county commission can make a vote and then someone can come in and say, we don't like what you did, so we're just going to put these few people over here and then they're going to make all the decision. It doesn't matter. And that's not right.
Okay. So a little bit of challenging democracy, it seems
Yeah.
like. Last point on debunking, and then I want to get into forward thinking and collaboration and what you all are doing.
Yeah.
I want to play a soundbite from our interview with Senator Taylor, and it was addressing your colleague Stephanie Love's comment at one of the board member meetings you guys had last week about this law being racist. Let's take a listen.
Okay.
This is a majority African-American school district. And the racist thing would be for the state to wash our hands of it and say, well, that's Memphis. That's a bunch of African-American kids down there. We've got other things we need to be concerned with. That would be racist. But for the state to look and say, we need to authorize a state intervention, a local intervention of the school district so that we can improve the lives of these largely African-American kids. What the racist point of view is to maintain the status quo.
Accountability, that is our responsibility as state legislatures. If we don't do what we're doing, then we are failing the people of Tennessee, because it is our constitutional authority to make sure that we have accountability in place. So we're not going to send a district $900 million and then them take millions of that to sue us on the things that we think are accountability measures.
So the first part of that was addressing board member Love's comment about the law being racist. The second part with Representative White was about the lawsuit and their blocking you all's ability to use taxpayer funds to do so. So let's unpack both of those. The first one, how do you all feel about that? I told them right away, I'm a black woman. I'm not a product of MSCS schools, but are the optics getting in the way of what their plan could be, or is their plan with not the intent that is being touted?
I think even during the interview, the word was mentioned, and I do think it is a cop-out for saying something is racist. I think it's totally about control. Now, if we want to say something is racist and what education has done to hinder certain people relative to funding, let's just call it evilness. I think when you start calling it evilness, I think you can actually see this thing in a better way. And if we can get people involved in the argument, because what's been done wrong for us, I mentioned earlier about funding for our school system, they would say, well, we send $1.9 billion a year. Well, it's not a gift. That's something you should be doing. And so we've always advocated for more funding. And so I don't think it's a racist thing. I think it's more of a controlling thing. And for so long, people that want to have control never found a way to get it. Now they found a way to gain that control, and that's what we're seeing, that we're fighting. It's just control versus accountability. And so I would love to continue to collaborate more with the state on how does this work, because personally I think that people are in this for the right reasons. And again, it's a lot of frustration coming out of Nashville, and it's a lot of frustration that's coming from Memphis. And so again, what my role is again to try to help bridge that gap to where we can tell a better story.
Absolutely.
Right.
You want to make a comment about this?
I mean, I spoke to a couple of parents, and if we're speaking in that matter, that's not, I don't feel like that specifically is our battle. But one of the comments that one of the parents did make was, hey, you do not see a majority African-American group or board going into a community and make a decision for a majority Caucasian group. And it's just a fact, and it's an honest truth. And no, we don't really want to talk about it because it's a tough thing to talk about. But that's when now you're hearing a lot of people reference Jim Crow and all of this now, because this is how it looks. Perception is reality for a lot of people. And I think that's pretty much like where some people are coming from.
Mr. Pettigrew?
I agree with Board Member Otte. It does feel like, I was born in 61, Jim Crow ended in 64, so I only know what I have read in history, but it feels like those days, because the democracy is in place for a reason, and people voted, and now their votes don't count, and that is not democracy. And when it comes to Memphis, I grew up in rural West Tennessee. But over 20 years ago, when I worked for the Tennessee State Department of Education, I attended meetings all across the state, and I quickly learned to say and introduce myself as, I am Marty Pettigrew from the state of Memphis, because for over 20 years, Memphis has been treated very, very differently than other parts of Tennessee.
Okay, so in the last 5 minutes of this, I want to talk about next steps. One of those things is this lawsuit that you all are, once again, having an obstacle to kind of get over, because there's the legislation now that the governor signed to not allow taxpayer funding to do that. So what is you all's strategy as far as fighting this legislation?
So again, I think I've said this once before. Anytime you try to handcuff a district so they can't go represent themselves in court, if the legislation that passed, if it's good enough for children, then it should be upheld in court, not avoided. So again, it's just one of those things that where you can see the actions of people in Nashville or what they're trying to do. So we're just gonna have to fight it.
Mm-hmm. And then when we talk about elections, there are 4 seats up on the primary ballot. That's Tuesday, May 5th. Has this whole situation made the school board position less effective? How do you all feel about getting people to run? I mean, just what is the status of the school board position?
Well, I don't think it's made less people run, right? I think this is the most people we've had.
There are a lot of people, especially on the Democrats.
Ever. So, and I don't think it has deterred people from running. This is the most I've seen people run. I think they had to go through and just make sure everybody was qualified to run. That's how many people ran. So I don't think that people are detoured from that. And I would encourage people to, if they want to take a role in local leadership, to get out there and do it, because we need people that are energized, that are innovative, and ready to take on that role, because it's very heavy. It's heavy, and it's an everyday thing, and it's not a part-time thing, and you have to do it all day, every day, right? And it's, and I just say, if they want to go out there and do it, you do have to be courageous. You have to have an open mind, and you have to be good with people and be respectful to people. And so I definitely don't think it's deterred anyone from running. People are out there and they're going, and I'm excited for them.
Would you say your current colleagues with the current board are all on board with fighting this legislation?
Absolutely. Just from hearing them at our meetings, I think we're all on board.
Okay, so what happens if these new board members come in and have a different approach?
Well, so I think if the overall goal is to how can we see light at the end of the tunnel so we can get to a better outcome for our students, I will hope that the people who are running for a school board right now, hope they have that in mind. And so I would love to work with people coming on the board with that particular goal in mind, how we fight for teachers, students, and fight for administrative staff is where they always get left out of the conversation. Right. Mm-hmm. And so teachers, students, administrative staffs in the community, what's the overall goal? So again, whether it's us, collaborating with the board of managers, we would like to see that to see their progress, so we can tell a better story if at the end of the day the goal is to move student achievement. Okay,
you all are doing good work from what you've said, the facilities plan, and then the consolidation of the 5 schools I know you all are working on as well. You all are in the schools often. I see it on social media. But this state intervention seems to be moving more toward, pending the lawsuit, more towards that it's going to happen more than it's not. So what are you all thinking as far as collaboration? What does this look like? Are you meeting with state leaders such as Representative White, Brent Taylor? What is the best case scenario here?
Yeah. Absolutely. We've been reaching across the aisle the entire school year. I know that when we go to our conferences, we have workshops in Nashville. For sure, Porter and I, we definitely make an additional effort to say, hey, we're going to hang out a couple more hours and we're going to come knock on your door, appointment or not, and we're going to talk to you and we're going to ask you, what is it that we can do? I've personally asked Senator Taylor and Mark White, I've personally on several occasions, like, hey, what is it that you guys need? How can we be effective? What do you want to do? Like, how can we work together? I know some of Mark White's interest is workforce development and AI. And, you know, I understand that. And that made me look more into like, hey, what are we doing for our workforce here, right? And just to give you an example, we do host career fairs. What I did talk to our superintendent about is like, hey, we have career fairs. What I want to know is, out of those career fairs, what are the percentage of jobs do these jobs give to our students? Actually, so that's going to take part. Like, we can try to help get them opportunities, but if they go to career fair and then let's say one of the companies don't help the students get a job or an apprenticeship, well, that's out of our control. So I asked for a translation of that. One thing that he did point out was a lot of times, because of the hazardous areas, because of the certification needs, because of the some of the age restrictions, a lot of times those students cannot go into those factories and work.
Wow.
So now what it looks like as far as workforce is more of a adopt a school type model, where they give the schools money and not actually give the students opportunity. So that's where the gap is as well. I understand we play a huge role, but it's going to take a community effort to get this working. And the school district cannot do everything. We need some businesses to say, hey, you know, I know this factory is made this way, but maybe we have a space over here we can hire 10 kids that's safe, they can get the experience, and they can make some money as well. So that's all going to contribute. I started working when I was 14 years old, so I learned a lot. You know, I was 16 for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so the companies, they have to come together to help support us so we can make sure our students are getting opportunities as well.
You've given so many specific examples, and that really helps, again, with context here. Last question, because we are really running out of time. Students are always going to be at the forefront of all of this, and, you know, get lost in the sauce with politics and intervention and state legislatures coming in and local leaders. But what should students, parents, educators, the public pay attention to moving forward to decide whether or not this intervention was in fact a good idea and in the best interest of students, and what should they start paying attention to if it turns out not to be? What are the indicators as to whether or not this state intervention was in the best interest?
Marty, come from parent perspective.
There you go.
Oh no, I'm so opposed to it. But again, data, a decrease in data with this team would be a huge sign that it's not working. You know, I've heard a lot of talk about the district leadership, the folks working at the district. You know, I would just urge folks in this team not to throw the baby out with the wash. There's some good leadership. There are some great things going on, and I have colleagues that work with districts across the state, and they are constantly saying, I don't understand what's going on, because when I work with the Memphis-Shelby County team of leaders, they're far ahead of the other parts of the state. So we have good leadership.
Any changes you all think that the public needs to pay attention to see which direction this is going to go in?
I want to say, for our community, just be informed as much as you can. You know, continue to reach out to your representatives, your board members, your state representatives. Just be more informed. And I do agree, it should be a community forum town hall meeting. We can go out and give the proper facts. So you're just not listening to one narrative, because it can seem like it's a dark cloud over the school system here right now. And so again, there is light at the end of the tunnel. But one thing I probably would see is if I can walk in the classroom and I can ask a child, a student, hey, solve that math problem for me. Or when I'm talking to people in my community and they say, my child actually likes going to school. They like the principal smiled at them, the teacher smiled at them, so they actually had better lunch at school or something like that. Not saying that's a real serious indicator, but again, once we can see progress being moved for proficiency rates, just overall, just people just happy. I think that'll be make some progress. But it doesn't take 9 people to do that.
Right.
Commissioner O'T, you have the last point on this.
Yeah, so we talk about town halls. I'm currently doing one this evening at Burke Ferguson. So I try my best to make sure that I'm being open to the community and the public. We're going to have other representatives there. Mr. Parkinson's going to be there, State Rep Parkinson, Councilwoman Logan, and Commissioner Shantae Avon. I'll be there. So we're open. But I would say just our parents and our community just stay vigilant. And people, they really have to understand, everybody has to understand that we cannot have top tier performance with very low and bottom tier investments. It's impossible, right? And so I just say, just stay encouraged. Just know that we're going to stay focused on student growth, academic achievement, and getting resources to our classrooms. We're going to stay focused on better outcomes and better resources for our teachers. And I just want to say, publicly, just thank all my teachers, everybody that's offering up their time, volunteers, parents, grandparents, administrators. Thank you so much for what you're doing for our students, and don't grow weary. We're going to keep working and fighting as hard as we can, and we need your support. And so we're going to keep doing the work.
Okay, well, this conversation will continue. This is the story that's going to keep on giving, so I'm sure we'll have you guys back. We did talk to you all about a month ago, really diving into more of the work that you were doing, so be sure to watch that on ABC24+. That's our streaming. And thank you, Commissioner Porter, Commissioner O'T, Mr. Pettigrew. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And please stay with ABC24 for all your state MSCS state intervention coverage.